Hey, all right, and welcome to another edition of the Who Dat Jedi podcast from all parts unknown tonight. So I am Aaron sitting in my Star Wars room in Gentilly, and we've got Dave who is sitting in his, what room are you in? Are you in the living room or are you in your
I'm
bedroom?
in my bedroom.
All right. Just assuming you have pants on because all we see is a shirt, but that's all right. Well, is your dog Lucy with you tonight?
Not tonight, no. So
Okay,
sadly,
she didn't want to be a part of it. All right, and from Metairie, we have Alfredo.
Hello, and I'm also in my bedroom and no dog either.
All right, pants.
Yes,
All right,
they exist.
and we actually have a very special guest tonight, and joining us from Houston is Holly Griffith. And if you want to say hello to everybody, Holly.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me on the show.
And Holly, yeah, it's great to have you here. Holly is an engineer with NASA, so she's automatically the smartest person on this podcast. She is a Louisiana expat. You continue to visit New Orleans regularly, though.
Absolutely.
Huge Star Wars fan. If you could see this video of her, she's got probably as much Star Wars stuff behind her as I do. Majority of it is Princess Leia. I'm sure we'll hear more about that later. She's a member of the Lagerettes. If you listen to our podcast with the Chewbacca's crew a few months ago, yeah, it seems like eons ago. But we talked about the Lagerettes, and you're also very nearly in the documentary Looking for Leia that Dave mentioned in an earlier podcast. And you've given multiple talks at various cons, including Star Wars Celebration. We'll have you hit on all of that after a bit, but man, guys, we swung for the bleachers on this one. And the funny thing was that you actually kind of reached out to us, as I remember I'm sorry,
I did. I saw that this podcast existed, and I was like, New Orleans and Star Wars. It's like my two favorite things. So
I think
I just wanted to talk to you.
We all got hit on Twitter by a friend of ours, Julie, and she's like, "Hey, yeah, you guys have this podcast, and I've got a friend," and we're like, "Yeah,
Julie's
this sounds
great.
Awesome." Yep. So, like I said, so I guess we'll go around the horn. And how's everybody hanging this week? What are we doing to keep ourselves busy?
You mean besides work?
Yeah, how is work going at the hospital there, Fredo?
All right. I mean, we're not going to the hospital right now because unless you have a primary need, right now they don't want you near the hospital. So we're learning how to do everything online like everybody else, which is a fun experience when you have to coach people, halfway up the state or far away from you on how to download apps and sign up for stuff. So, it's fun, but that's work in the meantime. And then just been trying to stay sane. I picked up the Rise of Skywalker Blu-ray the other day, so finally got a chance to kind of just sit down and watch it again and enjoy it at home.
Did you watch the documentary that it was with it?
Haven't had a chance yet. That was my plan for the weekend.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, wow, there's the German Shepherd. All right, Lucy.
Oh yeah,
Lucy's good to go. All right. So I guess with that cue, Dave, what are you doing to keep yourself going? You guys had a parade outside of your house.
Right.
Only parade going on in New Orleans.
Yeah, just about. Parades are frowned upon, but
this is a parade of what, about 5?
Yeah, I mean, it was like 10 people, and it's a local group of moms here in New Orleans who are trying to basically give people a sense of normalcy, or at least try to make the best of our circumstances. And so my wife had expressed, I think on Twitter or social media, that our 5-year-old's birthday party had been canceled. And so they were like, we want to come and cheer her up. And so they paraded by the house, and one of them was in a big T-Rex outfit, and the local news covered it and everything. So it was a lot of fun.
Aww.
She got to feel special.
So, Holly, you're also working from home, you said, and everything like that. So what are you doing to keep yourself sane and everything?
Yeah, at work, really work. Yeah, so NASA, we've been teleworking for a few weeks now. Um, it's kind of great. It's a great place to work because, of course, they're like, they go straight into not crisis mode, but just, oh, there's a failure, there's a problem. Okay, we need contingency plans and we need redundancy and we need. So before all this started, we actually had a telework test day where they encouraged everyone to work from home, even though the order hadn't gone through yet, and just to test the systems. And then about a week later, we had another test day just to stress, like everyone log on, use the VPN, just stress everything. And they were
Try to break things.
And yeah, right, do it. And so whenever they finally gave the order, okay, they had different stages: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 is like mandatory telework, I think. So once we got to stage 3, they were like, okay, we're good. So
I would have to imagine that you guys are you probably get into the problem solving mode more so than most industries. I mean, whereas a lot of people are panicking and scrambling, I think it's just in your nature, just say, all right, we got to, ever since that pesky Apollo 13 thing, you kind of.
I was one of them.
I just said.
We've heard of that.
They exist in an industry where there doesn't, they're devising what they're doing as they go along.
Yeah.
They're having to invent it because it doesn't exist. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's which Apollo, the 50th anniversary of Apollo 13 is this month, by the way. So
wow. Right.
Yeah. So I'll put that out there. But yeah, just to stay sane, I don't know. I'm trying not to watch too much news anymore because it's just depressing.
Yeah, I'm that way too. I've actually kicked on my Xbox for the first time in a while,
Nice.
And I'm probably playing the most lame game that you can. It's just Tiger Woods golf. So I get done with work
quiet.
and I just golf, And I actually started running again. I haven't been running for a while because I actually sprained my ankle. You guys didn't know that, but yeah. Started running, so that's kind of nice after work, but. Otherwise, no, it's so far so good. Keep knocking on wood. But how about Saints news? Since this is the Who Dat Jedi podcast, we signed PJ Williams today,
right?
And Sean Payton is going to infect the entire world by having their draft at a bar. Did you hear this today?
Yes.
USA Today has this article. It's an opinion piece. And how the Saints are being so irresponsible by having their draft night at a bar that's going to infect all of New Orleans that's already behind the 8 ball and blah, 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 blah. And Sean Payton actually tweeted back at this person and said, you got about only 8% of your facts correct. And I mean, it's the bar, and I'm on a podcast, I'm using air quotes, but the bar that they were talking about was, is it 68,000 square feet? 68,000 square feet, Dixie Brewing facility.
Okay.
Which is located in the east. It's located at the end of an industrial road. You can only be driving up there if you're going to that.
Well, that was the best thing was that in the article it's like that people, Saints fans will just be wandering by and wanting to. It's like, ain't nobody wandering by the Dixie Brewing, out there. It's just, that ain't gonna happen. So, but that has been one of the most enjoyable things about this quarantine is that Sean Payton, I think, has rediscovered Twitter. It's
worry about your meat.
Yeah, well, he actually he tweeted at his daughter because his daughter said like "Happy birthday, Will," something like that. I don't know, I love you, something like this. And Sean Payton then said, "Yeah, happy birthday, Will." Megan, who's Will? So Sean Payton's Twitter feed right now, you just have to watch it because he's bored, I think, and so it's just good. That, and it's also fun watching just NOLA Twitter. Anytime anybody tries to come after New Orleans for anything, it's like we have our problems with our mayor and our governor and stuff like that. But if somebody from outside the city or state try to come after him, it's like all holy McClunky comes down on him. You know, it's just because everybody's just bored and sitting there on Twitter. So yeah, don't come at us. But
It's a
anyway,
little crazy. It's a little intense. I'd say, like, too, the thing about this article that was so disappointing is that she had a point, and she screwed it all up by getting all the details wrong. And like, oh, you're wandering down Bourbon Street going to this place. No.
Makes
But
the truck fly.
Yeah.
but the
Google.
point that Saints fans would want to go check it out is actually a good point. There are a lot of Saints fans in this city that would probably be like, let's go wander by and see. But yeah, she screwed that whole thing up.
Another thing just on Twitter that just was kind of funny. This was, I think, a week ago, and there was an article. And Dave, I think the first one I saw was Kate. She had replied to this. It was a New York Times tech section, and their article was the title was like we love your kids and your dog, but we don't want to see them on meetings. Proper Zoom etiquette for telemeetings. And it was like everybody attacked this article. It wasn't just, I mean, it just wasn't New Orleans, but everybody just attacked this article. It's like, you know what? No, you're going to see my dogs. You're going to see my Star Wars collection. You're going to see all these things. And like within 30 minutes, that article was down. They took it down. So I think they just got attacked. So yeah, it's like nowadays, be careful what you put on Twitter because nobody else has anything to do but, follow their Twitter feed. So anyway, that's a long discussion there. So maybe we just move on into Star Wars trivia. How about that?
Let's do that.
All right. So Holly, since you're new to this, this is only episodes 1 through 6. It is from the Star Wars Trivial Pursuit DVD game. So
Okay. I think I have it.
And I can't. We don't call out categories. We just read questions. Normally, I give everybody a card, and then we just go around the horn. But since they're my cards and we're doing this remotely, I'm just Alex Trebek now. So anyway, all right. So who wants to go first? Who wants to go first tonight?
I'll go.
All right, Dave's going first, and then you get to call out the next person. So, all right. What device do Y-wing and X-wing pilots use to plot torpedo runs?
I'll say their targeting computer.
A targeting computer. Yes, almost verbatim. Good job, Dave. All right. So,
Nice.
Dave, you call out the next one. Who's next?
Let's go with Fredo. So Holly has to wait.
All right. Who hands a container of deadly kuhans over to a hired assassin?
Oh.
I didn't know that's what those things were called, but
Neither did I. I just thought they were like venomous sea slugs.
What it kind of looked
Venomous
like.
centipedes. That would be Jango Fett.
Jango Fett, it is. Handed it over to Zam Wessel. One of the biggest, it's like, I think she's a changeling. Like, what's a changeling? It's like, doesn't matter. We're done. It's like, we're never going to see this person again. A changeling doesn't matter. It's just one of those things. And by the way, I like that thing I shared in the Twitter group is Obi-Wan showing the dart to Dexter Jettster saying, you know what this is? And Dexter Jettster says, nope. And it just credits.
Right.
So, all right. So, all right. We're 2 for 2. All right. So
Man. No pressure.
To Holly.
Yeah.
Who becomes a far younger and more powerful replacement for Darth Tyrannus?
Oh. Well, I mean, do you want Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker? Right.
I will accept both answers because that's what they put here.
Okay. Okay.
Nope, absolutely right. No, and we're not going to have. I don't want you to react like I did at bar trivia when. Okay. So Fredo, no, I haven't let this go. I'm going to ask Holly this question and see what she thinks. This was the question from bar trivia because we play on Tuesday nights when we're not quarantined. And the question was, harvested. I even remember this verbatim. Harvested, harvested from the planet Jeddah. What Star Wars? What kyber crystals are used to power what Star Wars weapon?
Do you want me to answer? I mean, or okay.
You can answer. Why is that a BS question?
Oh, why is it a BS question? Okay, I didn't know exactly what.
Well, no, you can answer if you want, but
I mean, it's a Death Star.
Or.
And that was the answer.
Death Star laser.
No, actually, the answer was lightsabers.
Oh.
Fredo, the answer was lightsabers.
That's right. That's right.
But the answer could be the Death Star, because I went up to the trivia jockey and I was like, gave a dissertation on why this could be two answers. Because
yeah, no, that's right. That's right.
Especially, I said, since you are referencing Rogue One, which had everything to do about the Death Star, the kyber crystals, I'm putting Death Star, and it is a right answer. And so I wrote it, and we got it wrong because the answer was lightsabers. I was so mad. I'm still mad.
Yeah, because I went straight to Rogue One. But it's like, of course, yeah, absolutely, lightsabers too, yeah.
All right, see, NASA agrees with me. All right, so I'll ask myself one here. Who nearly succumbs to Anakin's force choke on Mustafar? Which there's a grammatical error in here, by the way, or an editing error. There shouldn't be a comma there. Sorry, technical writer thing. But that is Padme. Yeah, Padme Amidala. So. Here we go.
Oh, wait. Couldn't that also be, I know it's just 1 through 6, but Krennic, right? Rogue One.
Could be now, but this is.
But he didn't really nearly succumb, right? It was just kind of a joke thing, but.
It's the Saga edition, so yeah, technically.
Okay.
I would, if I was the trivia jockey, I would give it to you, but yeah.
Okay.
You would just go, oh, it's what's in the computer. I don't care. That's what the answer was given is.
Man,
what we're learning is Rogue One is just a problem for trivia, apparently. That's the common denominator here.
Basically.
So there's a little bit of Star Wars news. Last week we talked about Rosario Dawson. I don't think anything has been official yet.
Not yet. Not from Disney or Lucas.
But we do know that Ahsoka is going to be in the second season of The Mandalorian,
right?
Which leads us to some more news. Fredo, there's a couple things going on the Disney Plus land today.
So then, like a day after it was announced that Ahsoka would be appearing in season 2 of The Mandalorian, it began being making the rounds that they would spin her off into her own Disney Plus live action series, and. Really, the big quote is from Bob Iger, who is the head of Disney, and he was on a conference call, on an earnings call, we call it, when he gets in with all the shareholders at the end of every quarter, and they start talking about what they're going to do. So this is a quote he gives, quote, "The priority in the next few years is television, with The Mandalorian Season 2 coming in October, and then more coming from The Mandalorian thereafter, including the possibility of infusing it with more characters and the possibility of taking those characters in their own direction in terms of series," end quote. So in other words, not just taking the character, putting in new characters in The Mandalorian, but taking those characters that start there, giving them their own shows, which naturally leads to 2 + 2 = Ahsoka. Basically, a boss.
A Star Wars story. Bosk. Yeah.
Bosk has to be in everything. So yes. So naturally, the inclination is they're bringing in, you cast somebody like Rosario Dawson to play a beloved character like Ahsoka, to have her do her own show.
Do we run into the problem of getting too far down the nerd well? You know, like you have to have watched Rebels, and because there are going to be people like, again, I always bring up my brother, who's a big Star Wars fan, but he hasn't watched a lot of Rebels or Clone Wars, and he's going to go, who's Ahsoka? Why do I care? You know, but the rest of us are going, ooh, a dark saber and Ahsoka. Which, by the way, I do want to say, kind of a link to this was Carlos Esposito. Did I get the name right?
hmm
He
Giancarlo Esposito.
yes,
Giancarlo
okay,
Esposito.
sorry. He made the comment that he broke a lot of dark sabers on set, so there's going to be some clanking of lightsaber and
Ooh.
dark saber, I think.
There's gonna be a lot of dueling.
Chills.
But do we get down too far down the nerd well if we're going to do an Ahsoka Disney Plus thing, or some of these, if we keep bringing it, like what we've talked about, how we'd love to see Cad Bane, in something, but would that sell? I guess I throw that to the crowd.
Talking about bringing her in, and so the question now isn't whether you bring her in at all, but how that ends up playing. And if it plays well, then totally give her her own show. Yeah, absolutely. So it really sort of hinges, in my opinion, on how good her performance is in Mandalorian.
I think, it's not inappropriate to think that they would do that, just from the standpoint of it's a character that's already established. So you don't have to do a lot of back work setting her up. You can do a bit of an introduction into Mandalorian, and then if you want to go deeper into her backstory, you can have a show, her own show do that.
Holly, got any ideas, thoughts?
I think that's a good way to put it. I think The Mandalorian was such a big success that it brought in a lot of even newer people who weren't really, I'm not gonna say not Star Wars fans, but they didn't really pay attention to like you said, Clone Wars, Rebels, or even maybe episode 8 or 9 or something. So it brought a lot of those people in, and so I think if they see her there, they'll depending on her performance, I think that could be even bring in more people. So it could go either way. It could.
And I guess I'm one of those. I've said it before in this podcast that I remember watching Rebels. I started watching Rebels, hadn't watched any of the Clone Wars ever, and I was watching Rebels. And at the end of season 1, there's Ahsoka, and everybody on Twitter is like, "Ah, Ahsoka," and I'm like, "All right, whatever," and it's kind of like at the end of The Mandalorian season 1. It's like, the dark saber, and my wife's on the couch going, "What the that thing?" So
I get it. My husband's the same way.
But it didn't it didn't ruin anything. It's kind of the icing on the cake. But but that's different than giving somebody an entire series unto themselves. And that's Ahsoka was always part of a cast rather than the thing. So it'll just be interesting to see how it goes. But that's not what this whole podcast is about. So I just wanted to see if we're going down too far the nerddom. But
Yeah, if we're in the podcast, we're already too far down the path. But I think it's a fair question because this is the first instance where we see an animated character transition to live, live performance. Normally, it's been the other way around. It's been, characters established in the movies that now we get animated into a TV show. This is the reverse. So we've never seen that from Star Wars before.
She's a popular enough character too that you think there's probably a built-in fan base that would seek the show out, and so you have a baseline. It's kind of like Solo. As long as they had not gone insanely over budget with that movie, they knew that they were gonna make 300 million or whatever it ended up being. I'd have to look it up, but they kind of knew this is our floor. And I'd say with Ahsoka, she's a popular enough character that there's probably a high enough floor that they're comfortable with it.
They're selling her lightsabers at Galaxy's Edge for $200, and there's enough of a demand of it that they can sell it and sell out of them. So,
fair enough. All right. Well, there's other Disney Plus news, Fredo.
So the other bit of Disney Plus news that came out is Lucasfilm has hired. I'm reading this over from StarWarsNet.com. Lucasfilm has hired Joby Harold as the new writer of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. So obviously we know that the production on that Obi-Wan series got pushed back to January of next year because of writing delays and they let go of their original writer, and so they hired Joby Harold, whose credits include Hayden Christensen's anesthesia film Awake and the Guy Ritchie movie King Arthur: Legend of the Sword. So apparently he is going to be coming in and to develop the story for Obi-Wan.
You know, and that was originally supposed to be a movie,
Mhm.
and then it became a Disney Plus series, and then it got on hold, and then everybody thought maybe it's being shifted back to a movie, and now I guess it's pretty much, well, via this story, it's kind of confirmed that it's still going to be a Disney Plus series. So I don't know. Anybody seen either of those movies?
I saw the King Arthur one. The less I say about it, the better.
Fair
No.
enough.
Yeah, no, they're not missing much there. I will say though, reading the story that they put, saying regarding production starting in January of next year, given the dynamics of everything that's going on in the world right now with the pandemic, do we think that any of those productions are actually going to get started on time?
It's a good question.
You know, but given the way that they actually created the Mandalorian using the virtual screen and everything, it's probably not unfeasible that you could probably create some of these things with less than 10 people or fewer than 10 people on set.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just saying. It's like
Mhm.
so it would be interesting.
Yeah, that
I mean,
tech is really cool, and you could film like 10 people at a time, and then just digitally overlay them into a scene, and probably have it look actually good. Um, so maybe, yeah. I it really depends. You know, there's so many moving parts, but I'd say it's reasonable to assume that things are going to get delayed and pushed back. But you might see things still happen. Like, I wouldn't surprise me one bit if we saw productions kick up in the fall
Mhm.
or even in the
And
summer.
a lot of it really is going to come down to travel. Say, can you get the actor that you want to say, somebody like Giancarlo Esposito, who may make his residence in New York, going to LA or whatever. I don't know how easy travel's going to be in the age of coronavirus. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah,
it's
and I had read that a month ago or so that I think the Cassian Andor series was supposed to start filming in June, right, or around there. So this summer, so that could definitely be impacted too.
yeah.
Just haven't heard anything official.
Yeah, and you gotta wonder. I mean, a lot of times, as we said with Cassian Andor, when we were discussing it, there comes a point where you have to let go of all the staff because you're paying for them and they're just sitting around. So if you can't use them, they usually shut down production. Everybody's told, go find your next gig, and we'll try to bring you back whenever we fire things up again. So maybe that'll be easier, but maybe not.
Well, and of course, movies might go down the way of how a lot of albums are put together anymore. It's
Mhm.
like, I can be a part of a band that's like, hey, Aaron, it's time for you to lay your drum track down. I can do that in my room as long as I have, they a computer with the
Pro Tools.
tracks and just lay down my drums. Everything can be sent, digitally.
Mhm.
So, if you ever hear a duet, very rarely are those two people in the same recording studio at the same time anymore. So, who knows? It'll be interesting to see what happens. Um, Dave, you finished reading the Ahsoka novel this week.
I did.
You don't have to do a whole review on it right now, but what do you dig it?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. You said you'd read it, this one,
Yeah.
right?
hmm
Um, what was really cool about this story was it got into the story of her lightsabers, which I really liked that a lot. Because it was a meaningful story. It wasn't just, oh, I have white lightsabers now. Um, they kind of like went into the explanation of where they came from and why they were so meaningful and how they called to her. And I really liked all of that stuff. And I like the flashback. At the very beginning of the novel, they flash back to the Siege of Mandalore.
hmm
Um, and there is a face-off between her and Maul, and like that's the thing that I'm waiting to see in Clone Wars, that I'm really excited, that I'm really hopeful they'll show us. Um, so yeah, I liked it a lot. Did
Has
you like
anybody
it?
has anybody else seen it or seen it? Have you ever read it? Anybody?
I have not.
So it is really cool. The thing I dug about it the most, actually, I looked forward to all of the little vignettes that they had,
Yeah,
scattered throughout. It's all these flashbacks that you're talking about. It's like the rest of the story was just kind of because, and what's interesting is in the book, those vignettes are like, I think they're blue. Is that right? Blue pages or something? I don't know. Is that the way yours was?
I was reading it digitally, so
Oh,
they
okay.
were, yeah, there was like italicized or whatever, but
So
yeah.
I could see it was coming, like, oh, cool, another vignette was coming. But yeah, all these, it also gets into how, Rex and she kind of escaped, the siege of Mandalore and all this stuff. And um, yeah, it's a good novel. It's a young adult novel. I mean, you're
Yeah.
not reading War or Peace in it or anything, but it's it was fun. It was good. Um,
I think some of those have been the best, to be honest. Some of the new books, the new canon, um, or the young adult novels, like I think what Lost Star by Claudia Gray and the Jen
Oh yeah.
Erso Rebel Rising. That was a really good one too. So I like those.
well, cool. Since Holly is talking, we'll go into the meat of this podcast. We want to hear kind of your story. I'll pitch this over to Dave though, but I just want to remind. I gave the introduction earlier, but I will give an abbreviated one. You're an engineer at NASA, and you came from. You're now in Texas, but you originally from Louisiana. Yeah.
Yeah, originally from Lake Charles, but lived for a while in New Orleans, and it's my favorite place. So
Right on. And huge Star Wars fan. You're a member of the Legerettes that marches in Chewbacca's. And so, yeah, I'm going to pitch it over to Dave. We want to hear more about your story here. So,
One of the first things we ask people when they first come on here, is kind of like, what's your Star Wars story? Like, how did it start for you? And so, like, do you have an earliest memory, or do you remember becoming a Star Wars fan?
no, I don't. It was always there for me. I was born in '78, so I'm dating myself, but so it existed before I did. Um, and I don't remember that moment. It's just I have early memories of being 5 or 6 and playing with my cousins. Let's play Star Wars, and there are pictures of me before then and Star Wars shirts and things. So it's just always been there. I mean, yeah, I can't. I guess my dad got the tape at some point, and we had a VCR, which was a thing, back then. That was fancy. Um, and so I would just, like a kid does, watch it over and over and over and over and over. But you had to rewind back then, so it was annoying. But
Yeah, and play with the toys. Absolutely.
right, yes, yes.
So when we first started talking, and you were communicating, that there are a lot of tie-ins between Star Wars, science, and NASA, and like more so than one might think. And you really got my creative juices flowing with that, because I was like, okay, I'm curious. I really wanted to know what you might have been referencing in particular.
yeah, we want to know, is NASA developing
uh,
a lightsaber
Or a
or
Death Star.
or a Death
I
Star?
can't.
Yes.
I can't. If I told you, no, I'm joking. I wish we had that budget. I really do, because someone calculated it. The Death Star once, right? It's like $800 trillion or something crazy. I wish we had that budget. I really do. Just let me put it out there that NASA's entire budget is 0.5% of the entire federal budget. So it's if the federal budget is $1, NASA gets half of a penny. That's it. So no, that's your proof right there that we are not building a Death Star. Lightsabers, maybe someone's working on that. I don't know, not me, but so we do have and it was something better than Star Wars, I think, is we have a triple ion engine. So the TIE fighters, right? Twin, we have triple. That's actually the Dawn spacecraft. And so it uses ion propulsion. So it's, yeah, they're exploring. And so, yeah, we win. Just that one.
Triple ion beats
Triple
double ion.
Yeah, right. That's my one thing.
So how far along is that in development? Because
it's launched.
oh,
It's
wow.
been there, yeah.
Because how much faster would that make probes and other engines, other ships, put it that way, when they get launched?
It depends on, so it's with the ion engines, and this is not my specialty or field of expertise. So if I say something wrong, I apologize. But for the most part, the ion engines, they accelerate very slow. But once they get to where they are, then they're very fast. So it's how long is your mission? Is it worth that time of slow acceleration at first, to get to where you're eventually going? So I don't have numbers on me right now of, how much faster one is than the other. But at some point, yeah, they do become much more efficient and better to use than, traditional propulsion methods that we have now.
So this is not on our question list, so Dave, pardon me for interjecting here, but it's going to be one of my McClunky questions. Because you just made a tie-in, tie, haha. With the ion engines and bringing Star Wars into real world stuff, as an engineer, as a scientist, as an employee of NASA, when you watch Star Wars, or really, do you ever sit there and go, "Oh man, what BS! That could never be. Come on!" And does it ruin the magic? Are you taken out of the moment because there's no way we can make a lightsaber or anything like that?
No, because so Star Wars I kind of gave up on a long time ago. I mean, right? Alderaan explodes. It's the Death Star explodes. It's like we can all hear it, right? And so, I don't fault Star Wars for being, not adhering to the physics of the natural world that we have to adhere to in our daily lives. It is funny though. Whenever I was in the theater with another friend of mine who also works at NASA, and we were watching episode 8, and when that bomber, comes and it drops the bombs, we're like, why are they falling down? Like we both looked at each other and went, what? So generally in Star Wars, no, but for some reason that one scene of them, they're falling down. Why? That doesn't make any sense. And so we were, kind of like, do you think what could have done it? And my husband's like, shut up.
Didn't somebody retcon that to say they were magnetic or something like that?
No. Why didn't they use Y-wings? I mean, let's just be honest, but okay.
But however, when the Holdo maneuver happens and there's no sound.
Oh gosh.
Anyway.
That was great on screen. I'm not going to lie. It was a great scene. But, okay. I'm sorry.
No, nerd out. That's all right. Go for it.
It was beautifully shot and done, but just the maneuver itself. And I liked it how they referenced it. Did you notice in The Rise of Skywalker? Yeah. But like very sarcastically, like, oh no, you can only do that once. I thought that was pretty funny. So that's my take on the Holdo movie.
So are there any parts of the movies though that you try to rationalize? Like you turn your science brain off a little bit, or
yeah, I just try to turn it off for Star Wars. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Because if you just want to go and just go for the story and understand, okay, this is a fictional universe that they created for themselves and these characters, and this is the world that they live in. It's not our world, but okay.
But it is tough because like I'm a musician and classically trained musician, and I cannot listen to music when I'm working because I start to analyze the music. I cannot be a passive listener of music. And it's really kind of tough to go watch a band and say, okay, it's okay that this is just 4 chords and they're out of tune. It's fun. when you're
Yeah.
trained that everything needs to be X, Y, or Z. And it's like I also wonder, can like a professional golfer, can they just go out and enjoy a round of golf without it being work? So I mean, because you're
Mm.
dealing with all these things, it is kind of, I would imagine, be kind of tough to, you know, that suspension of disbelief, I suppose.
I guess because it's always Star Wars has just always been there. It was like, since before I understood, I knew anything about, what's the physics? I don't know. Um, so it's just maybe if it just started to exist like 5 years ago or something, I would feel differently. But no, I'm more tough on Star Trek. Yeah, I'm a Trekkie. We just need to all get along. It's fine. So
I thought it's Trekor. Trekkie
oh
is
gosh,
derogatory. No.
I don't know. I don't care.
As a quote
I mean,
from fanboys.
I
Quote from
don't want to
fanboys.
be derogatory towards anyone. It's just if someone calls me one or the other, I don't care. But yeah, I'm more rough on Star Trek. So I think they have more of the science claim. Star Wars is, it's just different, and they're both fun and fine. So
Well, cool. So I did want to ask you one of the most important questions in my mind is about girls in STEM.
mm-hmm.
Because it feels like to me our society continues to direct girls away from math and science. I've seen it with my own girls,
Mm-hmm.
where my oldest daughter will come home and it's like, I can't do math.
How old is she?
8.
Okay.
And she'd say, "Oh, I can't do math," and I'm like, "Well, yes, you can, because I've seen you do it, and this is something that you can handle." And I wonder, like, how much of that is like society, like, coming down on her, subconsciously even, and it's frustrating for me because I don't want to put any limitations on her. So I guess where I'm coming to with this is like, did your connection to Star Wars kind of lead you to NASA? And what was your path like? Did you encounter resistance? Was it difficult for you?
So two things. That's two separate issues. One with your daughter. Some advice is I had great parents, but my dad was amazing and 1,000% supportive of whatever I wanted to do. And that one thing in itself was such a huge, factor and played such a huge role that I don't want to say nothing else mattered, but it made things so much easier than they would have been otherwise. So that's something that you can do, which you're obviously already doing. So yay. Studies, because I do keep up with this, studies are showing that as girls are actually younger, they are more confident in math and they do believe that they could do it. But like you said, society and those messages start to seep in as they get older, and so they do start to doubt themselves, like, oh, this is for boys, as opposed to this is just something everyone does math. So as she gets older, it may get worse, just because that's what it, as they, usually elementary school is, they're more confident, junior high school less confident, high school, so but yeah, as long as you just keep supporting her, that's the most important thing you can do. The second thing is, yes, there was resistance, just where we growing up in the South. I mean, it's different. There's actually, after I got married and I was working at NASA, I had an older family friend but ask me, well, when are you going to quit your job to stay home and have kids? It's like, wait, what? So you don't go to school for engineering and then get a job at NASA, and then it's a few years later, it's like, oh, well, I'm just done with this. It's time to move on. Like, so it was more things like that. I think since I was so driven since I was younger, it's like, I know this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be Princess Leia. I'm gonna have a spaceship, and I'm gonna do these things. I think that just being so focused and driven, and like that, I just knew that people could say things or make comments, or I could go to school with people and they could be a certain way. I just didn't care. It was like, So I feel like I was lucky with respect to that, but I do feel like women who, they want to be engineers, or they want to go to STEM, or they want to do these things. It is very easy for those comments to, make you doubt yourself. But there's always going to be that person who sees what you're doing as somehow wrong, or, a threat to what they're doing. And it's just, I feel like if you know that going in, like, okay, I'm going to encounter these people. I need to just accept that, unfortunately, that's a thing. Maybe hopefully change their mind, but definitely do not let them affect what I'm doing or stop what I'm doing in any way, because then they win. So
I really wanted to address that with you because I feel like just the fact that you're out there and talking about this and willing to say, hey, STEM, this is awesome. This is something we need to focus on. Just giving people that role model could probably make a difference for young people. So
I hope
Well,
so.
with those gender roles that we like to try to think that, God, we're in the 21st century,
Mhm.
that you'd think we'd be past things, but I mean, we're still dealing with, like you said, those comments of, when are you going to stay home? When I was an instructional coach, there were schools across the country who were going to um, all girls math classes and science classes, because what you talk about junior high and high school,
Mhm.
if you want to get a date, you're not going to attract a guy
Mhm.
that you seem smarter than. It's just like, ugh, as you know, I don't understand that, but it's something that is, has to come from home, to a good majority of it. I mean, obviously your home was be smart, be involved, be like what you like and do it to your best of your ability, and be
It
damned with
is
everything else.
absolutely a lot of it is home. And a lot of it is we just don't realize that we're doing it. We don't realize we're sending those messages. We don't realize whenever we say things a certain way that it implants in a young person's mind as something else, because that's just how we've always said it, or how we've always done it. And in some way it's negative towards, girls versus boys in science and STEM and things. So um a lot of it is changing that. I don't know how you do that. And Dave, I can send you the study that was done. It's long, and but it's very good. Um, so I don't know how to change that, because I probably do it too. Women do it too. We're guilty of it. But it is a bigger thing. But absolutely, family and growing up in that environment is so important. Like, like I said, my dad, I could not have gotten to where I was without him and his support. And just never questioning, well, why do you want to do this? Why don't you do this instead? Just no, you want to, when I was a kid, you want to be an astronaut, go be an astronaut. That's awesome. So,
I hear from my kids too, like, oh, that's a boy thing or that's a girl
yeah,
thing.
yes.
And I'm like with my daughter especially, I'd be like, well, do you like Star Wars, right? Yeah, I like Star Wars. It's like, well, that's not a a boy thing or a girl thing. You like it. You can like it. It's your choice. Um,
Yeah.
so I like your fandom. Did it like kind of lead you in that direction into NASA? Like when did your like desire to pursue this career path sort of manifest?
It manifested when, as early as I can remember, and just watching the movies, because that's all we had for, however many years, right? 20 years, the first three. And just seeing those, and seeing like just things like the ships, and how they would go from one planet to another, and all the planets were different, and they had the different environments and the different characters and the different species, and they just look so interesting, and it's like, I want to do that. I want this ship that could go from places to places, and I just want to explore. I want to see them all. I want to go to all of the stars and all the planets and just, do all of the things. And so when I was like, okay, well, this is what I want to do. I want to have this spaceship that just goes to all the places. How do I do that? So when I was young, and in the early '80s, the space shuttle was just coming up and being a thing, and I was like, oh, okay, well, space shuttle is closest to where I'm going to get, right? So then NASA So that's where it kind of became this link between, okay, well, Star Wars and spaceships, and spaceships and NASA. So Star Wars, NASA.
Cool.
So how often did you go to, since you lived in Lake Charles, how often did you go to the NASA Center in Mississippi, or to Houston? So,
Houston. I don't want to say often. I mean, a few times. My parents would take me. I have a picture from when I was about 2, wearing a shirt, that says Johnson Space Center, and so I know we went when I was really young, and then probably again in like middle school, and then again in high school. But now they actually do field trips from Lake Charles to there, so that's good. So the kids can see it.
How many launches have you gotten to see?
I've only seen 2. I tried for 3. It was scrubbed. It's hard because I worked in mission control. And so when you work in mission control and there's a launch in Florida, in mission control in Houston, and there's a launch in Florida, and then you have to be to work in 5 or 6 or 10 hours, it's hard to. So it's funny because actually working there in that particular job, it prevented me from seeing more launches. So
I totally get that because I worked in sports for like over a decade. And so working in sports prevented me from watching sports.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you're covering whatever you're covering for
Right.
8 hours or whatever, and you
Right.
miss everything else. So
right. Yeah.
So obviously Leia is one of your favorite characters. You held up action figure earlier. What is it about her that drew you to her specifically, like above and beyond gender?
So that's a good question. And this is my opinion. I don't want to stomp on anyone else's fandom. Leia is the hero of Episode 4, and if you think about it, it's Obi-Wan. Here's your father's lightsaber. Look at this woman. She's in trouble. We need to go help her. Luke's like, no. God, my parents are gonna be gonna be mad. I'm gonna get grounded. Or aunt, uncle, what I mean. But and so at first he's like, I can't do this. I have to be home at whatever o'clock. And Obi-Wan's like, no, come with me. And he's like, no. And then they, of course, go back, and Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru aren't there anymore. And he's like, all right, I'm in. Well, and then we get to Han, and they pay him to get to Alderaan, which was the Death Star. And now Luke's all of a sudden, look at this woman. She needs help. We got to help her. We got to help her. And Han's like, no. And Luke's like, well, she's got a lot of money. And he's like, all right, I'm in. And so it's like, granted, they changed. So the characters changed and evolved over time in other movies. But for Episode 4, which was all I had for years, Leia was always in it. She was always in the fight. She knew her mission. Her planet got destroyed. She's like, nope, we're still going. We're still going. And these 2 guys are like, they just kind of have to be, grab them by the hair and come on, let's go. And so that was the difference to me. And for so long, it's, like Luke's the hero, Han's the, and they're great characters. Don't get me wrong. But I'm like, does no one else see that they have to be,
and that's
screaming into this?
That was the genius of what Lucas did. Was, I mean, she was a damsel in distress, but no, she wasn't.
Right.
He took that archetype and turned it on its head, because Han and Luke were hapless, and they were just pulling things out of their cabooses. And then she's like, all right, no, here, we're gonna do this. Get this walking carpet out of my way.
And into the garbage chute.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
absolutely.
It was awesome. Which, so kind of, I want to ask this question. So how did you feel about how they treated Padme's character in especially Episode 3? We've talked in previous episodes. I don't know, because you just talk about Leia being this strong person. That's, in my opinion, that's the way Padme started, and then they just ruined that character, in my opinion. So I may have just set it up there, but go ahead.
And that's also a great observation, and I agree 100%. I was very disappointed just with the character of Padme. I feel like she had so much potential, and then at the end, it was like, that's it. I mean, I get it now. They had to do something to make her not be there or not be around or have a story for the other movies, but it just seemed like she was passionate and fighting in the Senate. And if you watch the deleted scenes from episode 3, there's her and Bail Organa and Mon Mothma, and they're basically creating the rebellion. And it's like, I want to see this. I want more of this. And then at the end, she's just not there anymore. And I was like, I'm not going to say, or people always would ask, well, what would you have done differently? How would you have done it if you're so great at this? I'm not, and I don't know what I would have done differently, but I just feel like it could have been done better. And maybe I'm wrong, but.
Did you like what you saw from her character in Clone Wars? Because I feel
Yes.
like Clone Wars kind of fleshed some of that out a little bit.
Absolutely. Yes. Clone Wars. Yes. I love Clone Wars. Dave Filoni is genius. And yes, all hail. Yes. She was much better in Clone Wars. She had more of her own role, I think, as opposed to just, being with Anakin. So there was more focus on just her and what she was doing and why it was important, as opposed to just kind of, well, she's just there. Well, there's Anakin, so we gotta have Padme. So
she was an idealist too, and I liked that about her.
Yeah, like Leia, right? I did like that about her. That's why I was sad to see what they,
Yeah, and I didn't see that. I mean, that may have been my dumb maleness for a long time, but no, but seriously, for a long time, I didn't really have that problem with the end of that movie. But gosh, like, I think it was Aaron who might have brought that up, like that being one of his biggest critiques. And I'm
her combing her hair, going, "Oh, let's just hold each other like we did on Naboo." Oh, come on!
It just. Yeah, they did her dirty in that movie. They did her dirty.
Yes.
But
yes.
Well, this is a decent transition. So, like, what do you think about on-screen portrayals of women in the saga in general? Do you think they're doing better now? Do you think have things gotten better, or is it kind of the same?
It's gotten, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's gotten better. This is such a touchy subject. I don't want, like a few Twitter ads like, I feel differently. It's like, we know this has been fleshed out. Everyone has a different opinion about it. But I think the sequels could have done a lot of things overall much better. I think the actresses playing those characters did a wonderful job. Nothing against them. I just think the sequels had a lot of issues, and that was just one of them. I do think that Clone Wars, especially with Ahsoka, is wonderful and amazing. I think I liked Jyn Erso. I think they had a little bit of trouble fleshing out her character, but I think that was just also another overall problem with at least the start of Rogue One. I love Hera from Rebels. I think Hera, in a way, is a lot like Leia, because she's fighting for the rebellion. She's kind of owning her, piloting her ship, and it's being herself. And she doesn't have magic powers, which I like too. That's another thing that drew me to Leia at the time, was she's a normal person, right? She can't, do the moving the things with the fingers. I like Cara Dune, Mandalorian. She's great. And I've always been a fan of Mon Mothma too. I mean, I know we don't see a lot of her, but I think she's great.
We really sort of, with our podcast, we really started with a focus on The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
I never really thought we would just be completely dedicated to the one show, but that's where it sort of lined up that we were going to start our podcast, and we're like, okay, well, let's talk about Mandalorian because it was the hot new thing. But since then, we've covered a lot of the other new material too. Mm-hmm. Is there any of the new material for you that you really have enjoyed, really liked, and is there anything that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so the new stuff, I love Rogue One. I really love Rogue One. I think that was just done very well. The story of, we finally get to, so as someone who's I was safety and mission assurance for Orion for a while, and as someone who builds objects or helps to design objects that go into space, I was, how did this Death Star, and how many safety reviews did this thing go through, and everyone missed it? Like, that is terrible engineering.
That sounds like Clerks.
How do you have a thing that can blow up a planet and it's, wait, what? This makes no sense. All of those engineers just need to go. So I loved the explanation of Galen Erso putting putting it in there. And so I actually have the Funko Pop of Galen. It's like, he's my favorite engineer. So I love that. I do like Rebels. Like I said, I like Hera's character a lot. I do like Clone Wars. I think Ahsoka was great in terms of getting, more women in the saga. So and I'm looking forward to the Cassian Andor show. Like I said, I'm a big Rogue One fan. So Cassian, I love him. He's great. So that's what I'm most looking forward to. But I do think Clone Wars and Rebels and Rogue One, those would be my favorite new things, I guess post.
Yeah. So you mentioned the sequels, and again, we've talked about this on the podcast before, and I really, really enjoyed. I love Rey, and especially in episodes that I still think I won't say one of the, but the best moment in Star Wars movies is when that lightsaber flies into her hand, and the music that happens there. I just think it's the best moment in Star Wars movies.
Okay.
And then for me, things got a little bit ruined, mainly by the net nerds, but this whole Rey and Kylo have to be a thing. And then in Rise of Skywalker, when they kissed, I think I groaned. I mean, we've talked about it. It's like, can't we have? It's what I liked about Rogue One is that I think Brittany and I were talking. It's like, my God, if they kiss, I'm going to lose my lunch. I mean, but they did a very human thing and just hugged each other. And I was like, thank you.
They were coworkers. Can they just be coworkers?
So I really do think that the sequels kind of they cheapened Rey as the movies went on, and that's what we kind of liked about Leia's her independence and her strength, and that's what Rey had. And then couldn't we just have it where she relies, that she finds that you need friends to support rather than this connection with Kylo. Anyway, I'm not a big Reylo fan at all, but anyway.
I don't have a problem with Reylos. I think I can totally understand why that trope is a thing. For me, it's, I don't know. There was just so many problems with the sequels, especially the continuity and is she this? Is she that? Is she in it? And it was so unfair to Daisy Ridley, who did an amazing job of it's just confusion. So there's just so much wrong.
By the way, sorry
don't
guys.
At me, don't.
Screen Rant got me this morning. Or was it yesterday morning? I think it was this morning. I was reading it a day late, but I was reading through my Google News feed, and there was Screen Rant on there. It says, Star Wars confirms that Palpatine was a clone in Return of the Jedi. And I went, what? I clicked into that article and I dove in all mad. And they said, April Fool. Oh, he wasn't. It'd be cool if he was. Like, So.
Oh gosh, yeah. The clone thing. The clone thing was interesting because Timothy Zahn had done it before, and so. But I do like the Zahn novels, and I'm glad that they made Thrawn a canon. But yeah, so I was like, oh, we're doing this. Okay, all right. Well,
Well, I'm with you on Hera. I think she's like vastly underrated by most of the fan base.
I agree. Yes.
She's so good.
I actually have Vanessa Marshall's autograph on a Rebels poster from Celebration. Yeah, her and Tia Sakir. Tia Sakir is awesome to follow on Twitter, by the way. So just, but yeah, I got them both to autograph that poster. I got at Celebration last April. So yeah.
Oh, you went to the most recent one. Okay, I didn't go to that one. Okay. Yeah.
I do have to ask you one more sequel-related question, though. I'd say like we've covered it at this point where they
Mhm.
are a little disjointed because you've got two different filmmakers making three different movies that sort of connect, but there are issues. Um, One of the things I wanted to ask you about, and kind of like circling back to what we talked about with female representation, do you feel like Rose Tico got a raw deal?
Mm-hmm. She did.
Yeah.
She did. And Kelly Marie Chan is wonderful, and all the stuff that happened after is terrible. And yeah, Rose could have been such a better character. I don't want to say better character. She could have had such a better story.
Right.
I'll put it that way. Because the Last Jedi, it was like, and Finn too, and that whole just
Well, let's be
running
honest.
around on Canto Bight, like what's going on? Why are we here?
Let's be honest. I mean, she could have done everything that I like Jana's character, but she could have done everything that Jana did in The Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. But anyway, I'm sorry. Keep going.
Yeah. No, we can. I can sequel rant all day, but I don't want to. Don't at me. Don't.
Hey, we all like what we like, right?
Right. Right. If you loved it, fine. That's fine.
But I'll say it's interesting that it's still, and this is one of the dynamics that people tend to dismiss, but it speaks to the power of Star Wars is it generates such passionate discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Very rarely people go, it's all right, I didn't like it. No, people like really into it or really against it.
Yeah.
So my running gag is still don't ask me which my favorite Star Wars movie is. They're all like my children. I said, but that being said, episode 2 needs to get a job and episode 3 needs to go back to school. It's that's the way I.
What does episode 1 have to do?
I liked episode 1.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I dug it.
Okay.
I mean, it's but
so episode 1 is your favorite child?
I wouldn't say it's my favorite of the prequel.
Okay.
Of the prequels. It's the one
prequels,
doesn't annoy me the most. But
okay.
But it is. It's. I think we can because we've lived with. I don't think has any other real movie. No other movie franchise has 40 years of history. And just.
You got James Bond, basically.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
I would argue though that every James Bond is just a standalone thing. It's kind of like
they try to have a continuity in them, and it falls apart after 2-3 movies. Basically, I mean, because that's what they tried doing with the Daniel Craig movies when they brought in what's his name from Inglourious Bastards. Forget the actor.
McClunky that.
No, well, that's the name of the movie. But no, it's Christoph Waltz. Christoph Waltz.
Blofeld.
Yeah, the main Blofeld, and you're like, too many people trying to play the role of Palpatine in their movie universe. The High Hidden Hand, the Phantom Menace that has moved all the pieces into action. You're like, this works in this. It doesn't work with you. So,
I will give them credit that they have done a mostly good job of connecting, like you said, Aaron, like 40 odd years of movies. But I guess so. You talked about Rogue One. You really like Rogue One a lot. Are there other favorites in the canon for you?
Movie wise or overall? No.
I'd say I'll say overall. I'll step in there. Doesn't have to be movies.
Clone Wars, Rebels, Clone Wars. I really, especially the later years of Clone Wars, it just really grew up and matured so much, and the story just really it grew. And it was, to me, it was just an example of this is how you do things right.
But what did you think? What did you think when you got to the episode and Darth Maul is a spider?
Okay.
Be honest.
I was happy to see Darth Maul again. I was not thinking from an engineer, maybe from a biologist or a doctor. Mm-hmm. How does this happen? But I guess we're always going to go back to, the Force can, through the Force all things are possible. I don't know.
Right.
it is one of those interesting things that I remember I binge watched the Clone Wars one summer. It's just what I did on the weekends when I woke up and just watch. And I got to that one, I was like, what?
Yeah.
But anyway, when Solo came out, and my brother, that's something I always talk about. I think a problem with Star Wars, especially when you get into the movies and stuff like that, is people having to do the homework. That's my running deal. It's like, because my brother, who introduced me to Star Wars, basically, took me to my first convention, and he called me after he saw Solo. He's like, how's Darth Maul back? I was like, oh yeah, he became a spider. What? It's like, yeah. I'm sorry, you didn't do the summer reading. Let me bring you back up to speed here, because he was like utterly confused. It was like, wow, okay, there's Darth Maul, but how is this working? So, yeah, go ahead. Just opine on that if you want to.
Yeah, and Clone Wars, while amazing, yes, go watch all of it. It's like, it's 7 seasons. So you tell someone, go watch this great show on Netflix. It's 7 seasons, and it's like, okay, wait, how much time do I have to devote to that? Even though the shows themselves are short for Clone Wars,
and they fly.
Yeah, it's like 7 seasons. Okay, no one's going to do that unless they are a hardcore fan. So it's, whenever you like, well, you have to do this homework, you have to do that homework. And for the Clone Wars, it's like, I'm not going to fault them for being a background reference, but things like, and which I feel like is becoming a bigger trend in at least science fiction overall, is you do have to do that homework. Well, how did this, that was in the comic. Didn't you read it? No, I didn't read it. Which comic? Well, it was, the third one of season 2 or whatever of and I'm sorry, I don't know how comics are described, but so it's like, or didn't you read the prequel to Rogue One, which was a great novel, a wonderful novel, and go read it. But it's like, I shouldn't have to do that background work and that homework on every character to understand every story. That being said, I do think the Clone Wars is a little different from those things, but I get it.
And that's what we were talking about earlier with that I think The Mandalorian did so well, is that there were those references that made some of us go, oh, that's cool. And the people sitting next to us going, what? It's like, but again, my wife still enjoyed everything, not having seen the Clone Wars episodes.
Absolutely. Anyway. And you feel like, and at least that story with Darksaber, that's going to get fleshed out, right? They're going to tell that story. Well, I mean, they were. We'll see what this new world brings, but you have confidence that, okay, that story is going to get told in a good way, and you don't have to go back and do all that work if you don't want to. But I feel like, especially with the sequels, a lot of that was, some of it, was required almost. And I feel the same way, like I said, with just other sci-fi. Like, I'm reading the Picard prequel right now, and it's great. But it's like, did you know that Geordi was the one managing the spaceport on Mars that got attacked? Like, oh, Geordi, that's a big thing, right? No, okay,
yeah.
Not really mentioned. All right. So
sometimes the homework gets to be a little much, but Rogue One, then, is that number 1 for you?
And the new movies, absolutely.
Okay. Overall, though, what's your number 1?
Episode 4.
Yeah.
I just love it. I mean, it just had everything for me. It had a little bit of everyone's story. Like, I mean, obviously Empire and Jedi did too, but I feel like Empire was, very, very Luke focused. But yeah, episode 4 is just, it kind of told everyone's story. It wasn't super heavy in one area or another. So it was, I just love it.
Well, that we've run through my questions. I don't know if you guys have anything.
I will say, I guess we talked, we weren't going to talk about this, but I will bring it up. So Holly and I have a similarity here in that she's wearing a Lucasfilm shirt. And I have a Lucasfilm shirt in my closet. I'm not wearing it today, but both of us have toured part of Lucasfilm. So when I was working for Google, I got to work at Lucasfilm for a day. And so I'll just briefly talk about what I saw. Then I want to hear what you saw, because I worked at the San Francisco headquarters with the Yoda fountain and everything, and you got to go to the ranch. So I remember when I was there. First of all, the lobby has all these cool prop replicas, and there's Boba Fett and Darth Vader and R2D2. But what was cool is when you got back into the normal hallways, all the hallways are decorated with matte paintings. Like it was a matte painting that they used for Die Hard, because ILM is, based in the San Francisco office. And of course, there are stormtroopers guarding a door, and ET's bike is hanging from the ceiling, and just all these things. Head was on a swivel the whole time. And so I guess what did you, when you went to the ranch, I guess, how did you get to go to, if you can say that, and what was that tour like? Was it as much of a like, oh crap moment as I had, because it was like, oh my God, I get to work at Lucasfilm. So
yeah, I mean, it's crazy because it was 10 years ago, first of all. So it's been a while, but it's also, like you said, your head is just constantly turning at all of the things. So it's like, how do I process all of this at once? I got to go because I have a friend who works on the Clone Wars, and he gave my husband and I a tour. And I guess the most memorable things is when you walk in, there's this display case, and it's got like Indiana Jones's whip and the hat and if I'm getting tiny details off, I apologize, but it's things like that from all the movies. And then, there's a lightsaber, and so it was just like, oh my God, like these are from movie history that you grew up with. And it's like, that's the thing. That's amazing. So that was one thing. And the library, which if you look up the Skywalker Ranch Library, and
it's one of my wife's dreams.
Yes. It's amazing. It's unbelievable to see it in person. It's just a wonder. That place is just amazing. All of it. And I know we talked about this before, but yeah, walking through the halls, it's like, put your head down. Don't look at this. Don't look at that. No one's computer screens. No. But they also had Clone Wars, future episodes, like concept art, hung up on, brainstorming and things. So it's like, nope, you didn't see that. You didn't see this. And so there was a lot of that going on too. So it was really a cool place.
At the end of the day, they took us into the screening theater where ILM does their dailies. And
Nice.
And they showed a clip that you can see on the internet, but they just showed, how ILM how they put together things for episode 7.
Okay.
And it was just cool. Then they took us to the company store after that. And yeah. But I was just amazed at how they just decorated with all of their stuff, and especially just even, like I said, the map. That was just incredible. But so yeah, right on.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So what are you looking forward to? Because we're done with episode 9. So I guess looking forward to, or what is your prediction of what's to come? We obviously know what's coming on Disney Plus, but where do you think we're going to get movies? What's going to be the next movie? What are your gut reactions?
That's a great question. And for movies, I have no idea, because it seems like The Mandalorian was such a big success. And again, I don't know if that's because of, the platform, how it was distributed versus a movie being, such a standalone thing, one every few years, or if it was just because it was better. I don't know, and I'm not going to say, but I think, in terms of movies, I do think that the question will have to be asked, because I think if you look at the numbers from 7, 8 to 9, they, and Solo was not great, didn't perform that great, relatively speaking. How, Disney will have to say, okay, does it just make more sense to do these series, or I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. I'm most looking forward to the Cassian Andor show, for definitely.
Let me ask you in a different way. If it was Christmas time, what would be if the next movie you could choose, what it would be, the subject matter? Because
I want Millie Bobby Brown in a Young Leia movie so bad. if she's 11 from Stranger Things, for those who don't know, but yes, I want her to be young Leia.
Because you could get Jimmy Smith to play Bail Organa.
Yes, good.
Still,
I've thought this out. Yes,
I mean, kind of teaching
And
her.
Mon Mothma too, right?
Right.
So
You could have him. I mean, he's
yeah, I
still old
forgot her
enough to
name.
play dad, and
Yes.
yeah.
So
you could have.
that's my dream. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but
Well,
I'd be down for that.
we got a young Han Solo movie. We should get a young
what?
Leia.
Thank you.
Well,
I agree.
particularly from the standpoint of getting us to see the viewpoint of Coruscant under Palpatine.
Mhm,
You could still
mhm,
bring in McDiarmid.
mhm.
You don't have to make him up to be as
It's creepy.
cool as he looked in Rise of Skywalker.
Yes, I know, right?
Yeah.
This could happen now. So we need to do it before we don't have Jimmy Smits and Ian McDermott. Yeah.
Right.
I guess
So,
another thing that we had mentioned in your intro, you've presented at conventions.
mhm.
So even at Star Wars Celebration, what was the topic? I guess what kind of things do you present on?
So the first was it was kind of a science and science fiction and how the two influence each other, and it was a panel with other NASA people, not all engineers, but other people from NASA, and we just talked about how science and science fiction, the two, how science obviously plays a part in science fiction, and then how science fiction, some of the things that you see, and in there, like Star Trek, the original series, how they had basically like floppy disks, and they
And
had
flip
cell
phones,
phones in a way, right? So how those two things influence each other and make real reality happen. So that was the first one. The second one was a panel with someone from the Lucasfilm, the story group, and other women, and it was The Force is Female, and it was about women in Star Wars. I have applied myself and other NASA engineers or NASA employees for the current celebration in August. So we haven't heard back, but I don't know how that's going to go given everything that's going on right now.
So
And that one's specifically NASA and Star Wars.
So also, the interesting connection here is Katherine Johnson
Mhm.
being a Louisiana native and such a, guess, what's the proper adjective for her? In
Icon?
NASA? Just pioneer and icon in NASA. Was she a role model to you growing up, or because I'm guessing there are probably a lot of people who didn't know her story until Hidden Figures comes out, but
Mhm.
anyway.
No, I didn't know. I didn't. That's why Hidden Figures. No, and that's a shame, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what she
Wow.
did. Look what they all did, and there's so many others, and we don't know these stories. And don't get me wrong, Apollo 13 was an amazing story and how that happened. And I worked in mission control. My background was in that system. So basically, if Apollo 13 had happened during the shuttle program, that would have been my system. So I get every part of that movie and I love it and the story overall. But we know that story. And
Yep.
so it's taken so much longer for these other stories to come out, and they're just as amazing. I mean, how do you do that in your head? I don't know. I still have to have an app to calculate tip. It's embarrassing, but
That's one of
so
the blows my mind
no,
in
I
the
didn't know
Apollo
about it.
13 movie was, they're in this, they're in this emergency,
Mhm.
situation, and they're having to do these calculations with slide rules.
I know.
Yeah,
It's
that just blows
yeah.
me.
I know it's crazy. I know earlier we talked about some other tie-ins between NASA and Star Wars. And did you know that we have an actual planet named Tatooine? It's real. It's George Lucas gave his consent. There is an extrasolar planet. It has 2 suns, and we call it Tatooine. And
Right
we've
on.
also discovered using the Kepler mission, Hoth-like planets, Camino planets, and Mustafar. So that's another thing. And also George Lucas visited Kennedy Space Center before he started Star Wars. And the concept of the Jawa crawler is actually the MLP, or the mobile launch platform, that they would bring the Saturn V to the launch pad. It's that vehicle. If you look at the wheels, they're very oddly shaped, but turned upside down, turned over. So
Yet he won't let Ole Miss use Errol Akbar as their mascot.
It is funny because it's like, Strange Things. I don't know if that's up to him or not, or if they have a legal team or what, but I think there was an acronym once, which we have a ton of Star Wars acronyms. We have Leia, we have Vader, we have Jedi, we have, oh gosh, there's just so many. We have Yoda, we have, and there was one, I think, R2D2 maybe, and like there was like a fuss, and then it was like, no, we're not asking, can we just do it? And then it was like, okay, it kind of went away. So I don't know how much of that is just they have a huge team of lawyers who just kind of jump up at all of this, or it's actually George Lucas, sitting in a big chair like, no, you may not. So I guess at this point it would be Disney, but
it's Chris Rock saying, I think George Lucas is going to sue somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never met him, so I can't say.
It's like special envoy to George Lucas to ask his permission to use all of these things.
It's a funny mental image, but I'm sure deep down maybe he cares, but I don't know. But so those are one other thing on STS-127 shuttle mission. Luke's lightsaber from Return of the Jedi actually flew on the space shuttle, so. That's another tie-in. Yeah. So
that's very cool.
Yeah, it really is. And it was on display at Space Center Houston for a while, so you could go see it. And they had a big, like, the 501st came in, and there was this big ceremony, like, presenting the lightsaber, and it was very cool. It's really, really cool.
It's probably a little fancier than Chewbacca's with Peter Mayhew's sock, right?
Hey, I was his red shirt one year. That was awesome.
So this last celebration, I also got, I don't know. So in New Orleans, have you ever been to Finn McCool's?
I used to live 3 blocks from Finn McCool's. So I used to walk there on a regular basis. Yes.
Well, you probably bumped into Fredo then. But
anyway, did. If you were there on a weekend at 6 a.m, I was there.
Okay.
A picture of Chewbacca holding a Guinness, and I was like, oh my god, I want that. So I went online and I found the artist who did it, and so I got this print of Chewbacca with a Guinness. And at Celebration, I had Jonas Swatomo and Peter Mayhew both autographed that. And it was 3 weeks before Peter died.
Yeah, I was gonna say yes. Yeah.
But we had a very meaningful connection because a friend of mine in the 501st was friends with Peter Mayhew, and Gary lives here in New Orleans, and he said he held and looked through Peter's episode 4 script, but anyway, so in Mayhew is my painting. I said, well, we have a New Orleans, and Gary Bro just looked up and he just smiled, and he goes, just like kind of a sigh, and goes, yes, we do. And so that was my interaction with him, and I shared with Gary, and then of course, weeks later he's gone, and it's so it's in my hallway here, signed by both of them. So that's one of my favorite things to have. But.
Yeah, that absolutely. Yeah, I have a picture with him, but not an autograph. So yeah, from when I was redshirting, he was great. He was great. Just the nicest.
It must have been an experience because people recognize them. I mean, it's impossible not to recognize Peter Mayhew just from his size.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because it was during the parade, and he was like, "I need more beads. Get me more beads." And so it was like, we're like, "We need beads. We need beads." Just because he kept, I guess he would run out. He'd throw up so many beads, and so he would like run out, need more. So we'd have to find more beads. He was great.
Well, right on. Well, cool. Well, man, thank you for joining us, Holly, and it was wonderful to hear.
Thanks for having me.
Story. I hope you'll come back again sometime.
I would love to. I feel like I don't have anything else to offer, but that's like my story. No, thanks, but yeah, no, I would love to.
Yeah, we just meet one week and talk about whatever Star Wars those going-ons.
That sounds amazing, especially during these times.
And you don't have to worry about being, I've said enough controversial things on here, so.
Who hasn't said something controversial? I mean, at this point,
That's right,
anything
I said it,
anything you say in relation to Star Wars is controversial now.
Somebody's gonna get upset about something, just the way it is.
Yeah, don't at me.
So, anybody got big plans for the weekend in your quarantine? Or you?
Besides watching the documentary and the Rise of Skywalker Blu-ray, no.
Nice.
It's a good documentary. It is good. I will say that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Fredo. No, Fredo, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, did you see that apparently Lego's gonna come out with a 501st Legion clone trooper set?
Oh my god.
Oh, really?
Yep.
When?
There was one time somebody was doing. I didn't get in on it. I missed somebody was making custom stormtroopers, and they would like make the head close to whatever your likeness is, and it'd be a 501st stormtrooper. And I missed out on having my own custom figure there. But no, the favorite joke Lego set I ever saw was Alderaan, and it was just like a gazillion just pieces of like green just laying there. So
I've seen that. R.I.P.
Dave, what are you guys doing this weekend? Anything? Because you got keep saying.
Well, we got Rise of Skywalker because we got the Blu-ray as well, so we're going to be diving into that. I don't know. I mean, I gotta have to dive into the next Star Wars book. That's the one thing about the quarantine that's been good for me is I've had an excuse to dive into Star Wars novels. So I'll probably pick another one and dive into that.
And Holly, are you guys on a stay-at-home mandate?
We are in not statewide, which but where I live, I'm actually in Galveston County, which is just south of Houston, but I'm very close to Harris County, which is Houston, like a couple miles. Both of those counties are stay at home, so that's good. So yeah, we countywide, yes, we have to stay at home, but statewide, no, which is absolutely ridiculous.
So you're going to be doing anything to keep yourself sane? Anything fun this weekend?
Same thing I do every day, Pinky. No, just not working. But no, yeah, maybe get some more reading in. That would be great. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe some exercise. Maybe try to go outside a little bit. I don't know. We don't really plan, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Kind of have to roll with it.
Yeah, I know. We finished Tiger King, so what else is there really?
Yeah, honestly, if we all the nation must know more that they don't have any more Tiger King to watch.
I guess this is going to be like I didn't see The Hangover for 6 years. I probably won't watch Tiger King for like.
Oh, come on!
No, you should. You
have to.
So
it's
actually, my wife and I are slow. We got to get finished up on The Dark Crystal on Netflix. We hadn't watched that yet, so that's been kind of fun. So, all right, well, cool. Well, again, thanks for joining us.
Recommended that. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
and
thank you to everybody who's been listening to the Who Dat Jedi podcast. Oh, and by the way, to everybody, the Monday night NFL Network is showing the Dome Coming game with Steve Gleason's punt block and everything like that. That is Monday night, so be watching that if you're looking for some good football stuff. Mm-hmm. But with that, we'll say Who Dat, and Who Dat. Catch us. Oh, by the way, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts and on Google Play, right? And or whatever they call it, and Podbean. So, and then follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So, cool. All right. Till then, we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
McConkey.